Why are Senator Sanders and Mayor Buttigieg too big a risk for Democrats?
Bernie's labeled himself, not me, a democratic socialist.
President Trump certainly thinks this label socialism will work. If you're the nominee, why shouldn't Democrats be worried?
Because Donald Trump lies all the time.
So unless you can appeal to the diverse parts of the Democratic Party, including specifically the Black community, including specifically Latinos, if you can't do that, then we can't beat Donald Trump in November, and we can't choose a candidate who can't do that.
When our nominee is dividing people with a politics that says if you don't go all the way to the edge, it doesn't count. A politics that says it's my way or the highway.
Are you talking about Senator Sanders?
Yes, because we've got to bring as many people as we can into this process.
Bernie says that you have to bring people together, and we have to have Medicare for all. But Bernie says, and he says he wrote the damn thing, but he's unwilling to tell us what the damn thing's going to cost.
If we do what Joe wants, we'll be spending some $50 trillion on healthcare over the next 10 years. That's the status quo, Joe. That's what Health and Human Services says. What Medicare for All will do is save the average American substantial sums of money.
I keep listening to this same debate, and it is not real. It is not real, Bernie, because 2/3 of the Democrats in the Senate are not on your bill, and because it would kick 149 million Americans off their current health insurance in 4 years.
How about we start with what a president can do? I love saying this, all by herself. On day one, I will defend the Affordable Care Act, and I will use march-in orders to reduce the cost of commonly used prescription drugs.
I think this going after every single thing that people do because it's popular to say and makes you look like a cool newcomer. I don't think that's what people want right now. We have a newcomer in the White House, and look where it got us.
Donald Trump is not the cause of all of our problems, and we're making a mistake when we act like he is.
That's right.
He is a symptom of a disease that has been building up in our communities for years and decades. We're not going to let them change the subject. This is not about Hunter Biden or Vice President Biden or any Biden. This is about an abuse of power by the president.
And by the way, Colonel Vindman got thrown out of the White House today, walked out. I think we should, and at the same time, he should be pinning a medal on Vindman and not on Rush Limbaugh. And I think what we should be doing now, I think we should all stand and give Colonel Vindman a show of how much we supported him. Stand up and clap for Vindman. Get up there. Who we are.
These things are all connected, but that's the point. So are all of the things that need to change.
Senator Warren, is that a substantial answer from Mayor Buttigieg?
No. You have to own up to the facts.
And we have a president that literally blames everyone in the world, and we have not talked about this enough. He blames Barack Obama for everything that goes wrong. He blames his Federal Reserve Chair that he appointed himself. He blames the King of Denmark. Who does that? He blames the Prime Minister of Canada for, he claims, cutting him out of the Canadian version of Home Alone 2. Who does that?
Good Saturday morning to you. It's Saturday, February 8, 2020. Today in episode 16, I want to talk about last night's Democratic presidential candidate debate in New Hampshire. You just heard a 4-minute clip produced by ABC News in case you couldn't make it to the TV. It's a Cliff Notes version of a fast-paced debate. USA Today said the pace was faster and the attacks were harsher than previous debates. What you didn't hear in the opening clip is Senator Amy Klobuchar criticizing Pete Buttigieg for wanting to turn the channel during the impeachment hearing to watch cartoons. It was the 8th debate held in Manchester, New Hampshire last night at St. Anselm College. It was brought to us by ABC and Apple News and the local WMUR ahead of Tuesday's primary in that state. Did you notice anything different last night? For all you iPhone users, I got a text saying that I could watch the debate live on my phone. I I never saw that before. I guess it's the first time. And I thought that was interesting. They gave us, updates throughout the night. And I just so happened to watch the debate by accident. I hadn't planned it. And I had fallen asleep about 5 o'clock, and then somehow I woke up and it was 8 o'clock, and the TV was still on ABC because that's what I watch for the evening news. And there it was. So I started watching it. I became very interested in it, and I'm very glad that I watched it. Of course, I fell asleep. I'm an early riser, so I can't stay up that late. And I watched most of it. Went 2 hours, so it was long. But I found it quite interesting, and I wanted to share my thoughts with you. Before we get to today's episode, what happened before last night's debate is that President Donald Trump's administration had ousted 2 witnesses who provided the most damaging testimony during his impeachment investigation. That was in the U.S. House. Army Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman and Ambassador Gordon Sondland. Now remember, the Senate did not have witnesses. So this was 2 days after Trump was acquitted by the Republican-controlled Senate on charges of trying to pressure Ukraine to investigate a political rival, which of course is Biden, who's running for president. He ousted Vindman, the top Ukraine expert at the White House's National Security Council. He was escorted out of the building. And Vindman was asked to leave for telling the truth, is how his lawyer put it. And that was David Pressman. And hours later, Sondland said he had been fired from his post as U.S. ambassador to the European Union. In other news, Kobe Bryant crash, they said that there was no engine failure. It could take at least a year to, finalize the investigation, and that helicopter was 100 feet from clearing the fog. Now, I don't know how they could tell that, but that's what was reported yesterday. So engine failure was not the cause of the Kobe Bryant crash. So tomorrow we have the Oscars. For those of you that are big on movies, I don't know if I'm going to watch it or if I'm going to talk about it, but that's gearing up here in the United States. As well as we still have the issue with the coronavirus. The first American to pass from it happened. We got news of that yesterday. Now on to the debate. So if you watched it, you would have seen there were attacks. I really didn't care for that. The news coverage went to, let's see what the takeaways are. Let's see who the winners and losers are. We still don't know who won in Iowa. It's always about a horse race. Who's ahead, who's behind. But what I found interesting in the debate are not the quips and the attacks of each other, the candidates. And I wish that they would just state what their position is instead of attacking each other. To me, that shows that they're the better candidate. But getting out the vote, this issue, is the problem really getting more voters? Or is it the candidate that they choose? Hillary Clinton was their choice in the last presidential election. Do you think a woman stands a chance to get the party's nomination this time around? Who is going to beat Trump? That is their problem. And Tom Steyer summed up the task at hand. We need people with experience. That's why I'm worried about Mayor Pete. We've got to win or we are in deep trouble. Oh yeah, you're in trouble, all right. There's 11 candidates, but last night in the debate, there was former Vice President Joe Biden, who was with Barack Obama, the previous president before President Trump won. The other debaters were former Mayor South Bend, Indiana, Pete Buttigieg, who I kind of like, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar. There's a lot of controversy around her. Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, who a lot of people in the Arab and the Muslim community are backing, and, despite the term of being a democratic socialist that was battered around last night, Bernie's a pretty good win, a pretty good shoo-in. The others are businessman Tom Steyer, Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren, and businessman Andrew Yang. There's a few others that weren't there last night. I hope that the businessmen don't get knocked out of Tuesday's primary in New Hampshire, because Trump is a businessman. He is a newcomer, so attacking former Mayor Pete Buttigieg from South Bend, Indiana, was really not fair of Amy Klobuchar. She even said herself, Trump was a newcomer. Look where that got us. Being experienced, being a newcomer, forget about all that. Yeah, wanting to talk about your record, and I did this and I did that, and I'm responsible for this, and I'm going to get you this health care. It doesn't all matter. This is all talk. Campaign promises, you have to understand, that's what they use to get you to vote for them. But do they keep their promises? Most often not. So, the issues: abortion, climate change, criminal justice, economic inequality, education, of course, the electoral college, foreign policy, gun policy, healthcare, immigration, and the opioid crisis. Oh, and trade. That's a lot. So, whatever issues are important to you, if a candidate's talking about healthcare, is that important to someone who's in their 30s, or somebody who's older, or someone that doesn't have healthcare and doesn't even have a job? I can't really tell you who it's important to, because I know when I was younger, healthcare, I had it. It was covered. I had it as part of my job. I didn't need it. I wasn't worried about it. You don't have to worry about it unless you are born with an illness or you have an existing condition. So the voters that they want to bring in, that they want to make sure they get to come in and have more voters, the young people that they're looking for, I don't think they're too interested in healthcare. But I don't know. I'd be more interested about the economy, the jobs. But what I was more interested in was the fact of where this country is going. To me, of course, I'm not normal because I'm a former journalist. I am a news junkie. I'm always, looking to see what's going on every day, what's happening, whether it's foreign policy or the economy. whether it's local or global. I'm just interested in news. And that's not your average viewer or your average voter. So the average person, I think, would be concerned with the main question that I found to be very interesting by ABC News Tonight anchor David Muir on whether the candidate would bring our country on the brink of war. That question really bothered me because for a president to take us into a war, well, of course, he needs the approval of the Congress. But what President Trump did was risky. I know it was during a time when it was his impeachment. He was trying to take the focus off of him to do something. But you don't get us into situations like that, especially not with Iran. You don't mess around with other countries like that. In that region, in the Arab world, in Iraq, where we've been and where we have troops and we have boots on the ground, you don't want to put more lives at stake, including the innocent people on the other side. So I just want to give a big hand to last night's moderators. I didn't care for the labeling, calling Bernie a democratic socialist, saying, one candidate is inexperienced, the other isn't, who is, who wasn't. I'm going to be watching to see what happens with Steyer and Yang. As I said, I hope they're not knocked out in Tuesday's primary. The primaries is an indication of how they're doing. Even though Biden thought that he wasn't going to do well, he didn't do well in Iowa. It's unfortunate, but these are indicators of what is going to happen. Now, of course, nobody knows what's going to happen. That's what's making this so exciting. And I'm so glad that we can just put this impeachment debacle behind us and let's move on to what's really going to happen. Now we can focus on the 2020 race. Who do you think is going to win? Who do you want to win? A woman? A man? A businessman? Who can defeat Trump? Or do you think Trump will win again? The $1 million question.